everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay Hae podcast. And today I'm joined by Gill Higgins, who is making music at the moment as Curlew. But there's so much more to the story than that, which we'll get into later on. But first, hello Gill.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm really well. And now I just mentioned there's so much to talk to you about. But first of all, tell us about Curlew and evolution.
Thank you so much. So I started playing as Curlew in 2023, and I had never played solo before. So I've been in bands since I was 13, and I've been performing, playing as a session musician for other musicians, or playing in bands. And then I just didn't have the courage to play solo. I think I had managed to pluck up the courage to play Nice and Sleazy's open mic night,
right,
maybe once or twice, but I think it was just a confidence thing. And after playing with my band CLR Theory, that was the first project where it was really me expressing myself, and it was my music with Hannah, and we wrote it together. I think I used to work as a doctor in the NHS, so I just didn't have the time or headspace before that to really focus on my own work, and I would just write for myself and keep the songs to myself. And I was used to like arranging piano for other people, or arranging harmonies for session work, but it wasn't until I stepped away from working in the NHS that I had the time or the headspace to really concentrate on my own music. And as we've chatted about before, because you've kindly had us on the show before, with CLR Theory, that kind of happened accidentally as well. So we had written the music for ourselves and for each other initially, and we had no intentions of releasing it until we realised we'd actually written quite a number of songs, and actually that we wondered if it would be nice to share them with people, and also nice to kind of make a collective of our best pals, who are some of the best musicians that we know, and to play. So I think kind of fell into CLR Theory, and off the back of it, Curlew has kind of accidentally also happened. So we were offered a CLR Theory gig, and as you know, my bandmate Hannah Jarrett Scott is a prolific actor, and she's doing incredible things, but sometimes it's tricky to juggle her schedule. Sure. Because a lot of her acting work is also in the evening when we would usually do gigs. So we'd been offered a really nice support slot with Scots Whay Park at the Glad Cafe, and he'd invited CLR Theory to support, but Hannah was busy, and we were having that a couple of times where one gig we had to dep Hannah because she got a job last minute, but otherwise there was a couple of things, especially if they came up at fairly short notice, then Hannah was already booked for an acting job. So she was just like, go on ahead and just do it yourself, you've got loads of songs, just go for it. So I think it was with her encouragement. If it hadn't been for her encouragement, I don't think I would have done it. And the first time I played, it was absolutely terrifying. I forgot all my words for a song. There was singing parts for the audience, so luckily they were gorgeous. And they sang their bits, and I just kind of improvised a little bit on the top. I wasn't sure how to do it by myself either, because I think the way I arrange things, it's really harmony focused. So I felt very naked without any harmony, because I feel like that's my comfort zone, and that's what I really love.
And that's at the heart of CLR Theory, isn't it, those harmonies?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a cajon as a drum that I hit with a bass drum pedal, and I had my harmonium. But I was quite shook after. And on stage, usually I'm really in the moment and just in flow state, and I feel very present and connected with the audience. But in that one, I was very in my head and overthinking things and beating myself up a bit. So but after a couple of gigs, I found my stride, and I actually really started to love it. And Hannah lent me a loop pedal and that allowed me to layer up harmonies. So that was quite gallus actually, because it was maybe only 2 days before a gig that I had the pedal and sat down and had a play with it, but I was so pleased with it I just went for it and tried it out. I think I can be quite impulsive as well, so it means if I have a creative idea I could just give it a bash because it's just me. And I think the other thing that's magical about the loop pedal is I think previously I've been quite a crippling perfectionist. So that would hold me back from trying things, but with the loop pedal it is a cruel mistress. And you're never going to get a whole set perfect. There will always, unless you're absolutely, kind of millisecond perfect, there will be something that goes slightly off kilter. But it's been really good to overcome perfectionism and imposter syndrome for me, I think, because if I do make a mistake, sometimes that's really beautiful and it comes up with something unexpected that I couldn't have written for. And in other times, sometimes I just have to have a little slice of humble pie and just say, you know what, I'm going to start again. But in those cases, I think for me, my motivation for playing is to connect with people. And so it adds an extra layer of vulnerability for me. And I say it's a jeopardy a little bit. So I think as humans we connect best when we allow ourselves to be open and vulnerable. So actually I realised perfect is not the point in this for me. Also I think I'm not a particularly technical instrumentalist. It's all very emotive for me. So it's more like using instruments to communicate a feeling or to express something. So I think Curlew's been really magic for that. So now I've kind of got a setup with the looper, layer in field recordings. A lot of them I've taken myself. And I really enjoy that process. I'd done a mixing course and I'd mixed Colour Theory's, half a Colour Theory's Waves album. So it's been fun to I suppose Evolution is electronic, which was a deviation away from my kind of root sound. So my music's very folky, which is just naturally what I write. I play the harmonium, I've got a little keyboard, and the loop pedal is kind of my standard setup. A good friend of mine, Lisa Meach, is an exquisite violin player, and she's very experimental and she's very expressive. So, and she's just a really, really good human. So, really enjoyed playing with her. So we've played a couple of gigs together now, which is magic, and hoping to do more with her in the future. So Evolution came about because I was already interested in production and in mixing, and I'd used Logic, a computer program called Logic Pro for Colour Theory, and I was really keen to use a program called Ableton. Because it's quite good for playing effects or playing samples or tracks live with a bit of equipment called an Ableton Push that I'm sure that some of your listeners will know about already. And it's quite intuitive, it's a bit more creative to use. I love loops of things, and I've been writing for the looper, and in Ableton it's easier to loop things. So I saw this course that a friend of mine, Lewis Cook, was running. I think actually I became friends with Lewis through the course, but I'd met Lewis several times. He'd done this incredible yoga course online over lockdown, where his partner Susie would play synth and he would teach yoga, and then they would switch about because they're both really talented musicians and also really gifted yoga instructors. So it was just dreamy. At that time when you really needed a bit of stress relief, they would make a soundscape and you would do yoga online. It was beautiful. So I also love their band Free Love, and yes, that's who it is. And I've been going to their gigs for years. So when I saw that Lewis was running this course, I was excited, had a look about it, and it transpired that it was a free course that was funded, and it was 6 weeks where you'd meet up every Wednesday and you got to learn how to use modular synthesizers. And as you know, I've got a science background and I'm really nerdy. So the idea of making all the circuits and working out how this machinery works, and I think also the fact that it's analog synthesis, so that really excited me more than kind of making sounds on a laptop does.
Sure.
So the story of GLOSS, that's the Glasgow Library of Synthesised Sound,
Right.
who ran the course. It's a really beautiful one. So, have you been to the Head and a Bell exhibition at Goma?
No, I haven't, but I have heard that it's on, so that's something I'm aiming to do, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was magic. So, it's an artist called Scott Miles. And he had a commission from Goma, and he had decided he was going to make a sculpture out of synthesizers. And Susie and Lewis had already decided they were going to start this library of synthesizers. They're really passionate about the fact that electronic music started as like a working class kind of way to make music, and that you would repurpose bits of machines to make music with them. And as part of the course, we learnt a little bit about the history of electronic music and what people were doing and pioneering and the beginnings of it. Some of it was old kind of war machines, you know, radars from the Navy or whatever that they'd repurposed to make music. So they're really passionate about it being access for everybody, because I think something that had kind of been an obstruction for me, I've always been fascinated by it, but it never occurred to me that I could ever actually play modular synthesizers, because they're so expensive, which was like prohibitively expensive for me to try it. And yeah, I think also a bit of a bro culture around it. It seems quite cliquey from the outside. So Lewis wanted to create this really open community where people could come and use the synthesizers in the library for free, and that it would be a resource for Scotland's artists, and I guess people visiting Scotland. So Susie and Lewis went round synthesizer companies in Europe asking for synthesizer modules, and they gave loads of them to them. And I think Lewis had said they were in Germany, and the person at the synthesizer company had said, do you realise there was a guy here from Glasgow yesterday asking for free synthesizers?
Okay.
Like really fulfilling our Scottish stereotype of being stingy. You got any free synthesizers, mate? So it turned out that was Scott Miles, and he'd kind of pipped them to it and was there a day before them. So through the modular synth companies, they realised that Scott was also doing a project with synths. They collaborated, and then they pulled all of the synthesizers that they'd all managed to gather. I think over 70 modules that Scott had managed to get his hands on, I think he said. And Scott then made this, he's called it the Instrument of the People. And
this is the piece in the Goma? At
Goma, yeah, a kind of living sculpture. And then once the Goma exhibition finishes in February, then all of the instruments will go into the Library for Scotland, GLOSS. So in, I think it was maybe April time, I'd managed to get on the course to learn how to use them. And as part of the course, we had a whole day in the studio for free, which was such a gift. Because I think I love home recording because you're comfortable, you're in your own environment, and there's no pressure. I think also for me, I tend to have creative inspiration like quite late at night, so that's a benefit for me of home recording as well. But I think also just cost is
of course
a prohibitive issue, and studio time is expensive. So I think I was just thinking to myself, this might be the only time in my life where I have a whole day in a studio for free, where I can just do whatever I want. So I thought, you don't have to produce something, it's not about producing something. So I thought to myself, like, long and hard about how I was going to use this day, because it was so precious, such a precious resource. And I had been having I've been thinking about how the brain responds to music.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, with my kind of medical and science research background, I had kind of nerded out about that and looked at research journals from like neurology and neuropsychiatry or psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, music's just incredible. I think it just confirms what we all know. So
right.
within 5 minutes of listening to your favourite music, your brainwaves go into a calmer state of brainwaves.
Mm-hmm.
So within 5 minutes it does that, which I just think is magical. They've found that music can light up different parts of the brain like nothing else can. So they have people in a functional MRI machine where it can live track what's happening in the brain. Also, people who have had a stroke, if there's areas that have died in the brain, they can still light up with music when they don't light up for anything else. And patients with dementia who can use music to kind of hold on to themselves and their memories. I was thinking about this idea about music and what it does to the brain and it being soothing, and I thought it'd be really interesting, almost like an experiment, to try different things that might be soothing or kind of meditative, because I feel like we all need that, especially at the moment. And yeah, I started deep diving into sound healing practices from different ancient cultures. In traditional Chinese medicine, they have is it qi? I think it's qi gong,
right,
where they make different sounds whilst doing different exercises. So there was a module of a synthesizer that's by a Glasgow-based company called Instruo, and it's a guy called Jason Lim. He designs and builds synthesizers in Glasgow, and they've made this module that can detect the electrical gradients in living things.
Wow.
So I put the sensors on my body whilst doing these exercises to kind of document them and see what it sounded like through one of the modular synths.
It's beginning to sound like an Alex Garland movie.
In a good way.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Also, I did that for my peace lily. So I put it on my plant so she could sing the song of her people. It's just kind of using the electrical gradients in living things, but and then you can manipulate it in different ways to make different sounds with it. But like that kind of electricity or the signal comes from the living thing, which I just thought was magical. I looked at in traditional yoga practices. There's traditions of using different frequencies to target different chakras.
Okay.
So I made drones at different chakra frequencies, and I used the elements. So I've called it evolution because we evolved from water creatures and then went on to land, and then some of them began to fly. So it's water, earth, air, and fire. And I use that to kind of just kind of link all the ideas. So for that one, I would use like the chakra around organs that are specifically to do with water balance, and just kind of tailor everything for each element. So the peace lily was used for the earth one, and for the water one, I sampled the Roger Payne humpback whale recordings.
Right.
There was, when NASA sent the Voyager spacecraft into space, there was I'm sure you know this already, Ali, but there was a golden disc with 10 tracks on it that they sent. Although I was chatting to a pal about this the other day, and they were like, did they also send a record player, or did they just presume the aliens would have one? And I was like, that's a really, really good point.
I knew about the disc, but I don't think I ever knew what was on it.
So one of the things was the humpback whale recording. So I sampled that and put it through the water track. And that one's got a brook from an RSPB reserve on Isla. I find water really relaxing. Yeah, I wanted to kind of play off cliched, inverted commas, like relaxing music.
Yeah.
So, like whale noises. I just wanted to experiment. So I spent the whole day having the absolute time of my life in my element, excuse the pun. And I was with Gaspar Casanova at La Chunky, and he and Lewis were the engineers for the day. And yeah, just had the best time just playing and trying different things and just going with the flow. It was all improvised. I had made demos of my music that I've been playing in my live sets because I planned to make them into an album.
Right.
And I sampled some of my vocals from the demos, so it kind of ties in each of the chapters in the soundscape have vocals kind of from one specific track. Again, I've got a track called We Are of Water.
Right.
So it was samples from that were used for the water one, for instance. And I got one called Westerly Wind, so I used that for the air chapter. And again, I just I didn't have any. I didn't go into the studio expecting to share.
Right. Well, I was going to ask that. I mean, what stage did you think, oh, these are going to be recorded and then, given out to the world? Yeah,
I think in my mind I'd thought this is a really good way of using the time, because some of these instruments are so, they're rare and they're precious, and I thought I'll have these samples forever, so I could use them. So even if I'm just kind of making random bleeps and bloops on synthesizers all day, I could sample those beautiful sounds. Even if there's just like a tiny, a couple of seconds that sounds good, then that will be a good use of that day, because I could use that on anything in the future. Yeah. So everything was recorded into Ableton, which is what I now use for music production anyway. So it meant that I could just pull in the files, and then so each chapter was about 40 minutes long to begin with. And then there was lots of kind of just experimenting, like, which I used. There was an area of feedback, but I actually really loved that, so I used that in the fire one, because I thought it kind of like was quite evocative of flames or like of chaos. And I used quite a lot when we were tuning the samples to the chakra drone. They're changing pitch. I actually thought that sounded great. I thought that was really interesting. So for quite a lot of the tracks I've used, as opposed to the sample once it's in the right key, I've used the one where it's changing pitches, just because I thought that was quite interesting. So I think the first time I decided to use it, I've got a friend called Kevin Leomo who works in the arts department, and he runs lots of incredible music programs and music engagement and public events, amazing, really inventive music events for Glasgow University. Right. And I met him through a concert series that I put on in the university, and he's brilliant. And he runs a group called Sound Thought. So they're a group of music academics who make experimental music. Okay. And they've done lots of really cool projects. So I'd started following them on Instagram, and I'd been to a few of their events and really enjoyed them. Right. So they had a call out as part of Glasgow Science Festival to make a soundscape in the Botanic Gardens in Glasgow. Right. So the submissions were 10 minutes maximum. So I took the Earth chapter and I edited that down to 10 minutes and submitted it. So that was accepted there, which was lovely. Yeah. So that was magic, because, the greenhouses are so stunning. Yes, aye. And the idea was it would be lots of different people's field recordings or soundscapes all playing in the same space. Fabulous. And there were speakers hidden in the bushes, so hidden in amongst the plants. So as people were wandering around in the greenhouse space, then it was kind of a collective soundscape, because it was the different music. You would hear two pieces blending from speakers as you were travelling. And it would change as you move through the space. So it was a really beautiful idea, and I really enjoyed. I loved being in that space with the plants and hearing all the beautiful noises. And then it was after that, really, I think Lewis was so encouraging, and he was like, are you going to do anything with these? He then asked me, this actually was the impetus, so Lewis was arranging an event to celebrate the course.
Okay.
Because it was just a really, really beautiful community had risen from it, of like-minded people. There was people who had made a lot of electronic music before, and there was people who were trying it for the first time. And it was a really diverse group of people that were invited onto the course, and just a really welcoming and friendly, approachable kind of group of folk. So Lewis wanted to celebrate that, and also, have events to bring people from the course back together again.
Yep.
So he'd asked me if I would perform at La Chunky, if I would perform what I'd come up with. So that then encouraged me to edit all of the tracks down to 10 minutes each, so I could have a 40-minute performance. And I'd played with visuals before. My science work is in stem cell engineering, and in order to visualise different proteins under the microscope, you can use fluorescent dyes.
Right.
And they glow bright red, and the DNA glows bright blue, and some other stains are bright pink, or you can label cells with little iron particles that glow green. But I think the images are just really, really beautiful. And I think also, because I have quite a scientific lens that I view the world through, then quite a lot of my songs had references to kind of physiology, or I think most songs are about human emotions, but I think also I get a wee bit more nerdy about it. So I made visuals for that event using a mixture of nature footage and images from the microscope, and it was really fascinating for me because I was really excited about that gig. It was a gig that it was the most excited I've been for a gig in a little while.
Okay. And is that partly because this is just you? Is that part of that excitement, do you think?
I think because it was brand new and I'd never tried it before, that was quite exciting for me. And I loved playing it live. It was the first time I'd ever played electronic music. Completely out of my comfort zone. There was one laptop mishap,
right,
where the laptop stopped speaking to my MIDI controller. So I just looped some vocals, put some field recordings on, and then did some frantic copy and pasting in Ableton. But my pals in the audience said that they couldn't tell that's what I was doing. So that was quite interesting. I got away with it seems. But then I think listening to it as a 40-minute thing, I really enjoyed it, and I got really lovely feedback from people. So it was from that then I decided I would release it. And I had applied for a grant at the Dream Machine.
Right.
So it's next to the Barras, in the East End of Glasgow, and it's got surround sound and surround visuals. So
whereabouts, so people can get it, because this is where your launch is going to be, isn't it?
That's right. It's on London Road, in the East End of Glasgow. And doors are at 7. There will be free herbal tea, so you can have a nice cup of herbal tea, and it's all ages friendly. So if you have a tiny human that you care for, they're very welcome too. And everyone will be sitting in the round, and then I'll be in the middle, and on every wall there will be projections and surround sound as well. So I've been really interested in how to make gigs immersive, or to make it something special for people. So when I saw it's called the Betty McAllister Award at the Dream Machine, when I saw that, then I jumped on the chance, and I feel very lucky, because it gives me a whole evening and a tech rehearsal with an engineer for free, which,
again, it's
incredible
opportunity.
Because again, for independent artists, sometimes hiring spaces or engineers means that you won't get paid. You know, you really depend on the venue being really full. For this one, it's really intimate, so it's only 30 people. So I'm glad
I've got my ticket.
I'm really glad you do too. I'm really looking forward to having you.
You should say it's on the 17th of November.
It is.
Yeah, and we'll put a link on the website so people can get tickets, if indeed there are any left.
Yes, there are still some left.
Okay.
Yeah, there are still some left, so I would encourage people
it sounds
to
like
please come.
It sounds like such an amazing night. And it's so interesting. I've been listening to Air, Earth, Fire and Water today throughout, and it does what I think the best ambient music does, is that you can relax into it and just kind of let it kind of overtake you, if you like, or you can listen closely, and that's when you realise that there's something. It's almost like the oral equivalent of a Dali painting. You know, you can step back and you think, oh yeah, I can see where that is, and then you go in close and there's things going on that you didn't first realise. And I think that's such an interesting thing for music to do. I think ambient music especially.
That's really kind of you, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, you are one of the first people to ever hear it. I'd let some of my friends
honoured.
hear little bits, and I've sent it to Lewis for mastering, but other than that no one's heard it yet, so that's the first feedback I've had, so thank you so much, that means a lot to me. Definitely putting that on the press. like a Dali painting,
absolutely. Pretentious Ali Braidwood at Scots Whay Hae.
Not at all.
But I think what's really interesting as well is that when you listen to music, often you know, you're thinking about, what's influenced this as everything. But from what you've just spoken about, the music comes from the process itself and all these different processes that you talk about. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. I'm releasing a live EP in February, actually, and I shared the demos once I did a demo project where I did challenges with friends, and then we would make a demo each. So I'm really interested in this idea of sharing works in progress, and I think the process is a really beautiful part. I love performing, but I love the making of it just as much. And I think for me as well, it's maybe just with my experience of colour theory so far as well, just not having an expectation and just allowing myself to be free and just play. I think it's a really joyful way to work, and also sometimes I surprise myself with what I come up with. So yeah, it was a really brilliant process, and I really hope that Gloss is awarded funding for another run of courses. I know that they have put an application in, so I would highly encourage anyone, whether they've tried electronic music or not before, if they have an interest, because it's absolutely, it's transformed my music making. I've learnt so much, and I'm really excited to share it with people now. So.
And at the launch, when people come along, you're saying, are they sitting around? I know you don't want to give away any spoilers, but what can people expect? Because I take it it's multidisciplinary, and there's the visuals that you spoke about. Sounds like quite kind of experiential. I
hope so. That's what I'm aiming for. And the support is from Dawn Coolshed.
Oh yes.
Have you seen her play before?
I haven't seen her play, but I'm aware of her work. Yeah.
Yeah. So she trained at the Conservatoire in jazz singing, and she's an incredible jazz vocalist.
Yeah.
And I've started working for an inclusive music and dance company called Paragon, and I absolutely love it because it's just it's everybody's welcome, and it allows people who don't have opportunities to express themselves in a lot of situations. It just gives them creative freedom, and we're there to support them making whatever they want to make. So Dawn and I were the musicians for a show for the dance group at Paragon called M3.
Right.
And they performed at Tramway. So Dawn and I had a couple of rehearsals together with the group, and then performed at Tramway. So I think I just loved working with her, and her jazz vocal improvisations are just so beautiful. So I'd said to her, have you ever worked with visuals before? And she was like, no. And I was like, would you like to? She was like, yeah. And I was like, great, I want to come and play this gig. So she's going to open the show, so I can't wait to see what she comes up with, because I just love her ideas.
And what are you hoping people will take from Evolution? As I say, I guess you take what you kind of put into it in a way, but did you have ideas about that, about what an audience might kind of feedback from it? Because it almost feels like a piece of theatre in some ways.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that. I think, again, I don't really have an expectation, but I'm hoping that, it will just be a unique experience, and a way of people escaping for a couple of hours with Dawn and myself. And I think one of the main things that inspired Evolution was I feel like I've lost touch with nature, and I feel sad about that, so I'm making an effort to make sure that I get enough nature in my life, and I wonder if this kind of erosion of our connection with nature is contributing to this kind of loss of humanity, loss of our humanity, because nature is all in harmony, it's in balance, it's about symbiosis. We can't live in isolation, and I think a kind of individualist culture where humans are a standalone species, it's just not viable. And it's also just really bad for us. We need nature to be healthy, and I think our culture has forgotten that. I was really inspired by kind of ancient cultures that are very in tune with, mind and body connection with the elements, connection with the natural world, and just use that as an inspiration. So I hope it's a chance for people to connect with nature, for people to connect with themselves, and I love live music for that sense of togetherness. So hopefully also to connect with one another. I hope it'll be a kind of special experience where people will feel, they've been held for a couple of hours, and then they can go back into their lives.
You could see that idea in CLR Theory gigs.
Thank you.
Absolutely. For people who don't know, there's lots of harmonies, and you can tell the people on stage all kind of know each other, are friends, and all that kind of care comes into the audience as well. And I think, and then at the end you come in and you do what's the name of the final communion. I was going to say celebration, but communion, where you sing in the round and the audience is surrounding, so you've got that idea of kind of coming together.
Exactly.
So this seems like almost a kind of natural next step from that.
Yeah, it feels like that for me.
And it's interesting that you feel this is a different step from you, because I've seen you play music over the years with lots of different bands, but you know what, it didn't strike me that you've never done anything on your own. I don't think I assumed you did. I just didn't even kind of think. I just said Jill's playing with that band or that band, could you do? And so again, although this says Curlew is you, again, what we're talking about is collaboration, and I guess and collaboration and community are the two words I think which come up on this project, but right through your kind of musical career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to me.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I really love about music making. And the artwork for Evolution was the result of another collaboration. So, do you know the work of Ewan Robertson, a photographer?
I know the name, yeah.
So he's a really amazing photographer. He does a lot of live events. He's got some pictures from Biffy Clyro playing at the Barrage.
Oh, I saw them recently, yeah.
Stunning. Yeah. He's really gifted, and I love his use of light. So Ewan was having... he'd done a challenge previously that was to take and edit a photograph every day for 30 days. So he called it the 30 Days of Summer.
Mm-hmm.
And he decided to repeat this process last year. Was it in the summer this year? Was it last year? I think it might have been last year.
Right.
And I had absolutely jumped at the chance. He'd put out a post saying, I need models. Does anybody want to come and model for this project I'm doing? And he had lots of ideas that he wanted to try. So he'd kind of chat with you, get to know you a wee bit. And then based on your conversation, he was inspired by, oh, well, I'd really like to capture you in this way. What do you think about that? And I was like, yeah, great. So I loved the images. I just thought they were really beautiful. Quite dramatic lighting, and he'd used a prism for one of the images. So that's going to be the artwork cover for Evolution. And I thought it just... So he'd done multiple captures, so you can see my face kind of scattered.
Right.
There's a main image of me in the middle, and then the kind of prism effect all around, and I've got different expressions on my face in some of the different prism images. But I just thought it was a gorgeous image, and he was very kind and said that I could use it. So
that's going to be...
That just had a lovely feeling to it as well, because it was, another kind of collaborative project, and I felt like it reflected what I'd done in Evolution quite nicely as well. So
now, I know what I was going to say to you earlier, and it slipped my mind, but when you were talking about connecting with nature, it's really interesting, and I might be wrong about this, but I don't think I am, that there's been an increase in music and writing actually about and in nature. So you have a lot more people making field recordings and using that, to make their music. Jenny Sturgeon, for instance, recently did a whole series of things.
I loved that project.
Yeah, it was an amazing project.
And I followed her every day. She posted where on the map she was. And she'd used what's that called again? The 3-word app.
My brother could tell you about it, because I think he did the same thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So it gives you 3 words, doesn't it, based on your precise geolocation. So that was kind of the name of the tracks, and I loved that project. I thought it was really brilliant. I've got a ticket to see Corinne Polwart's spell songs as well for Celtic Connections. Is that part of Celtic Connections, or is it before? Actually, I think it might be before Celtic Connections, that one. But again, she was inspired by do you know about that project?
I know the Spell Songs project, but this must be the latest kind of iteration of it, because it's been around for a while.
So you can keep me right. I think the Spell Songs project was they were removing nature words from the dictionary,
right,
and replacing them with kind of technological words,
right.
And so there was a group of amazing musicians who made this book of spell songs.
Beautiful book it was as well.
Stunning. With all the imagery and kind of trying to keep those nature words alive, and she'd made songs about them. So yeah, I'm very excited for going to that concert. I think it's going to be incredible.
I'd say there's lots of writing as well, often even just kind of short pieces which are related to nature, and you wonder if that's partly a reaction to being locked up as we were for lockdown. But I think you're right. There's that desire to kind of reconnect artistically seems to be really strong. Maybe perhaps stronger than it had been for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a study that suggested even just looking at a photograph of nature for 15 minutes a day would bring your stress hormones down. So I've had a photograph. I went trekking in Nepal, and I've got this beautiful image of my friends going over this bridge in the jungle, and I've had that opposite my shower for about 10 years now, just because when I'm in the shower then I'll look at that picture and I was like, anything to bring my stress levels down. I was like, I'm gonna try it. But it is just amazing what a profound effect nature has on us. It's so good for us, and in modern life it's so difficult to actually get into nature. I think we're so lucky in Glasgow with the beautiful parks that we have, but I'm aware lots of people don't have access to that.
And even you were talking about the Botanic Gardens. What a great place to have in your city that you can go and in another beautiful park as well. We are incredibly lucky in that way. And you said right at the very beginning that you were kind of very exacting as a musician and before and thinking about that this has to be exactly right, but this is kind of freed you up. Is that the right way perhaps of doing it? So does that mean, I was thinking then about playing the songs live, will they almost change nightly or performance?
Yeah, it's improvised. So
yeah.
I've taken all of the separate instrument tracks from the Ableton program. So each track is called a stem, and you take all the stems, and I've got an interface which is buttons with sliders for volume. So I can trigger and play different tracks at different times. And so, yeah, I just improvise it live. And from the songs that I sampled in each chapter, then I sing those live as well, or take inspiration from the lyrics and improvise some vocals on the top. So every time I play it will be slightly different. And for me, again, that's out of my comfort zone. That's new kind of creative landscape for me. So I feel quite excited about it. I'm really, really looking forward to the launch on the 17th.
It sounds like it's going to be a really, really special night.
Thank you.
And talking about live shows, CLR Theory played live recently. You did a kind of night. And what was that like?
I loved it. So that show...
Did 2 nights, did you?
2 nights, yeah. So that was a fundraiser. We're making our second album. We're actually starting recording on Wednesday next week in the cupboard.
Oh wow! Well, I was going to ask, because the first one was created without you thinking it was going to be an album and done in a very specific, locked down way. Really, are you going to try and not repeat it, but do it in a similar manner? Is that the plan?
So I think we've discussed it as a band, and what we really love is spending time together. And I think, again, if we went into a studio, there would be more time constraints, and it would be a bit more of a stressful environment. We are going to apply for funding so that we can get some session musicians and on different instruments and pay them musicians' unions rates. We want to. We're thinking about. We're considering going into the studio to record the vocals, but we're going to try it at home and see what it sounds like.
Okay.
I think we're really keen to work more in the room to develop the songs, because it was all done remotely first time round. But with Hannah's schedule, she's going to be away a lot. So it means that...
So she could be in a cupboard in a theatre somewhere.
Exactly. She recorded a trumpet part in a theatre for Waves. She was touring with her band Pride and Prejudice, with her show Pride and Prejudice, sort of. And she recorded a trumpet part in the theatre with the sound engineer. So I think a kind of hybrid model is what we'll go for, but we felt like again, it's going to be about connection, not perfection, and that's going to be my motto from now on. And I think our sound, that kind of like lo-fi, you can hear some clicks, you can hear some breaths, but we actually really liked that. We felt like it made it quite human, and a bit organic sounding. So I think we are going to apply for funding, but I think we might choose still to do a fair bit of it at home. I think another thing is we love to layer things up, so a lot of waves had like 5-part harmonies and things. We just like totally went to town on it. So again, just having that time to do that at home, I think my songwriting, I love to put in a lot of detail, and that's quite nice to do at home. And also, you know, we practice at mine. Every band practices at mine. We have like Colour Theory family dinner and have catch up and a natter.
Excellent.
Put the world to rights and then sitting around and play. So, the Deep End gig came from trying to fundraise in order to pay for our next album, and also to raise money for Glad Radio.
Mm-hmm.
So Richard Bull had recorded our second Colour Theory Celtic Connection show.
Yeah.
And it was sold out, and it was such a gorgeous, warm audience.
It was, yeah.
It was just, I think it was a really special night for us. Again, because we had no expectations, and then people had supported us to have this wonderful year of taking our music places we never expected to, and sharing it in amazing ways. We were like playing live at the Key for Michelle McManus's Celtic Connection section. And we from going to a cupboard where you don't expect anyone to hear it, to sharing a new song for the first time live on national radio.
Yeah.
That was quite a jump for us in a very short space of time. So it just felt incredible. So that gig felt like a real homecoming, because we'd launched the album there, and we just feel so grateful because, of course, we can only be professional musicians if people support us.
Of course.
If people engage with us, and if people listen and show up. You know, it's very reciprocal. You know, we want to provide something special for people, and but we're very reliant on the people to keep creating the things. So it felt like a real celebration, and Richard had kindly offered to record it, and Chris Bramley is an amazing engineer, and he'd recorded it, and we had Gav Thompson live doing the live sound engineering, and I love working with him. He's just a lovely person and incredibly good at his job. Yeah. The sound is always perfect when you work with Gav. So it was a dream team. Yeah. An absolute dream team. And when we were listening to it back, we all got together for dinner. Hannah was away working on a show, so we zoomed her in, and we all had a glass of wine and ate our dinner and listened back to the concert, and it was really emotional for us. Lots of laughter, lots of deep emotions, feeling, and we felt really grateful. So again, we never planned to. What we thought we would do is release it on the Glad Radio website, which we're planning to do in January time. Kind of on the anniversary of it. But we decided that we were proud of 5 of the track. Well, we decided we were proud of it, and we thought it might make it easier for people to listen and kind of relive that special night together, or for people who had missed out on the gig, they could kind of experience it for the first time. By splitting it into tracks, and we thought an EP of 5 tracks would be good, so we picked 5 ones that we felt captured the night. You can hear the audience, and you can hear Hannah and I being a comedy duo, and us trying to get Nico to join in, but her being too shy. And it was really wonderful. So all of the proceeds for the EP are split 50%, with half going to Glad Radio, and they do incredible community. Yeah, they're fantastic community work, and they're brilliant. Everybody wants to play the hits. Yes, absolutely. Which I know that you're involved in. Well, every now and again, Snack Magazine and Rave Child organise that. Yeah. And that they allow local people to do shows, and it's giving people a voice, and and sharing different perspectives, and yeah, we were just really chuffed to share it. So we decided to do the event at the Deep End because that's where Glad Radio's studio is. We were actually in there with DJ Brown in the house yesterday.
All right.
To have a chat with him.
Good.
And we just had the best time. It was so fun. Just gabbing and listening to Halloween tunes for an hour. It was brilliant. But we chose the event space at the Deep End so that people could get engaged with the radio station as well.
Yeah.
So people could have a look at the studio and they'd meet some of the lovely Glad Radio volunteers and find out how they can get involved if they want to, because anyone can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it just felt like a really lovely way to give back as well for the support that they've given us.
Yeah.
And a thank you for capturing that night for us. Yeah.
And going back to the launch on the 17th, if people can't make that, where will they be able to hear Evolution? How, is it coming out is it coming out on the same day?
Yes.
Fantastic. And whereabouts?
So it will be wherever you listen to music. If you love it and want to help me make more music and make my album, then you can purchase it on Bandcamp.
Which is the way to do it, everyone.
We need you. We need you. So I'm going to release it as a postcard with Ewan's beautiful photography image. And I'm cooking up some other ways to share it.
Okay.
TBC.
Oh.
And it'll be available on streaming as well.
Be able to find it, and we'll let people know where they can find it. But if people can't make the 17th, will there be other gigs coming up? Do you know yet if you're going to be doing any more Curlew gigs?
So I've got lots of Curlew gigs
coming
brilliant. Up. I'm playing on the 8th of this month, supporting Amy Hollenrake at the Glad Cafe.
Oh yes.
So that'll be a solo acoustic gig for me, and then I'm going from one extreme to the other, in that the 17th the Soundscape launch will be completely electronic, and then I'm going to do a completely acoustic show at the Piano Drome in Edinburgh.
Oh, I love that Piano Drome.
I love it.
Funny enough, when you were talking about the sculpture with the synthesizers, I thought that sounds like a kind of electronic version of Piano Drome.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah, you're totally right. So for anyone that doesn't know, the Piano Drome is an amazing community-run project where they salvage pianos and they repair them if at all possible, and then they have a piano adoption scheme. So it's kind of pay what you can for piano, and if they can't rescue the piano, then they repurpose it. So they make furniture out of it, or they made this incredible venue out of it.
Yeah, amazing.
So it's a circular seats, and so I'll be playing completely unplugged, off mic in the middle, and they've got a Steinway grand piano that I get to play. I'm so excited. But again, that's going to be a real creative challenge for me.
Yeah.
Because I've now become quite comfortable with my loop pedal thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be back to the days of just little old me and some instruments. So yeah, I'm thinking quite carefully about arranging more of my songs for piano rather than on synth. And yeah, just how to arrange those songs for a completely acoustic show. So yeah, it's a month of extremes and of creative firsts
Fantastic,
for me.
Yeah.
This month. So yeah, this month's a big one for me.
How exciting. Gill, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's always a pleasure, and all the very best with Evolution.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely chatting with you.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different.